cloud. There we go. Okay, well, welcome to all of you to our inaugural committee's open house, if you will. And I see Dr. Chris Weber is joining us here too. I'll introduce him in just a minute. He's given us the wave from Wisconsin. So my name is Teresa Fraker, and I'm the Executive Director of the Obesity Medicine Association. And I'm joined tonight with my wonderful staff colleagues, Christian D'Souza, who oversees our membership and engagement activities, as well as Katie Rosinski, who oversees a lot of our marketing work. So they're kind of my Batman and Robin, if you will, tonight. So this is very, very informal, but typically our cadence at OMA in terms of introducing folks to the committee work of OMA has been at our fall conference meeting. We traditionally had conference tables with some pamphlets and those sorts of things. And this year we decided to take a bit of a different approach toward kind of introducing committee membership to our folks for 2023, in that we felt like by just kind of, obviously we publish everything out in the newsletter, which you would have all received. And then Katie did a dedicated kind of e-blast to our members around the committee work. But as we look at attendance for that fall meeting, if the only group that is apprised of committee work is the folks that are in attendance at that fall meeting, they're kind of the only group that knows about, that for that meeting. So this year we're experimenting with kind of having a bit more of a broad kind of open house approach. I've got a few slides to go through with each of you, but if any of you have questions about any of these committees, please don't hesitate to ask. Dr. Weber is very familiar with two of our committees because of his deep involvement in those, so he can definitely speak to those. We weren't able to have all of our committee chairs dial in just due to other commitments and things like that, but most certainly, if any of you want to visit with members, the chair of that sitting committee for 2022, or other members of that committee, I know any of our committee folks would be thrilled to visit with you about, let me tell you about this committee or my involvement with that. So thrilled that you're all able to join us, and I'll go ahead and share screen here, and then we'll get started to kind of just do a high-level overview of what our committees do here over the course of 2023 at OMA. So bear with me real quick, and I will share my screen. I'm just going to drag this over. Hang on. Okay, so you should see my screen. Okay. All right. So our application deadline for the committees is
Teresa,
coming up.
hold on.
Yeah.
We see your Zoom screen, but we don't see
hang on here.
PowerPoint yet.
Try this. Sorry. Thank you.
I feel like the PowerPoint will be more interesting than the Zoom screen.
It is. It tends to be a little bit more riveting, isn't it? So yeah, hang on here. All right, score. Let's try that. How's that?
Yep, there you go.
All right, sweet. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. So our committee deadline for the 2023 cycle is November 18th. We wanted to kind of get the committee apps out and then back and kind of start some of that processing work with our president as we head into the holidays. And so it's a little bit of a tight turnaround, but we did want to kind of get the apps out and back before many of you will be headed into the Thanksgiving and then additional holidays in December. So this is all of the committees that we currently have within OMA. And so what I'm going to do is do a high level overview, and then I'll ask Dr. Weber to make a few remarks. Sam Christensen has also joined us. She's been deeply involved in our committees for a very long time as well. So I'll have her make some remarks about her work, particularly in our diversity committee, as well as our membership committee. And I think Sam's probably been on each of our committees over the course of her tenure with OMA. So kind of the process of what we do in terms of review of our committees is the apps are open, as I indicated, and then we collect those again with that deadline that I mentioned. What we do then is we present the applicants and the rosters, the list of folks who have interest in the committees, to our president, and Dr. Angela Fitch is our current president as of our officer induction that we did in Anaheim here a few weeks ago. And then she'll review those. And then what she will do after her review is she will recommend the chair of that committee, as well as the membership of that committee, to our board in early 2023. So our board provides kind of feedback, edits, suggestions to that. As you can imagine, not tons of changes in that, but we do, the board is responsible for kind of, sitting those committees, if you will, or kind of finalizing those committees as we head into the year. And then we will notify our committee chairs and each of the committee members of that appointment in 2023. And then we ask folks to kind of dive right in early January, February in that time frame. And so that's kind of the cadence of what we do with our committee work. If folks have been on a committee previously, we do ask that they reapply for membership on a committee. So let's take, for example, if I was a member of the Advocacy Committee in 2022, and I wanted to remain on that committee, I would need to reapply for my role in the Advocacy Committee or any other committee as well. So it's not kind of once you're in, you're in. We do want to encourage multidisciplinary and have an eye for diversity in different areas of practice and those sorts of things across all of our committees. So we really look at this as a wonderful entree of getting involved in different levels. I can't speak enough, and I know Dr. Weber and Sam can speak to the wonderful relationships that you develop by your work on these committees. It's really been a joy for me over the last year to sit in on most all of these committees and learn from all of your collective expertise. So the first one I wanted to highlight is our Advocacy Committee, and they do a lot of work with advocacy, both at the federal level as well as local state levels. As you can imagine, advocacy efforts in the state of Louisiana probably look a lot different than advocacy efforts for patients in the state of New York. So we have a nice cross-section in advocacy of folks from across the country in different areas of practice. And we have a chair of that committee who's very, very passionate. Dr. Rebecca Andrick is the chair of that committee currently. And she and her colleague, she's based here in Colorado where the OMA is at, and they just had a huge win in the state of Colorado as it relates to patient access. So a lot of great kind of best practices are shared among that group. And then the next one is the Bariatric Medical Surgical Committee that looks to kind of marry up, if you will, both the surgical side and surgical care of obesity along with the medicine side of obesity. So with that, I want to pause and I'll ask Dr. Weber to make any comments about those two committees that he's lived and breathed on for the last year for sure. And he chairs our Bariatric Medical Surgical Committee, about any questions you may have of him and insights. And he's very hard to work with. You'll figure that out in about 32 seconds. So go ahead.
Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, I guess any questions to start with? I'll just, you guys can interrupt if you have any. I'll put my email in the chat here in case anyone has any questions.
Great.
Or afterwards, or after things percolate a little.
And Katie will also put the application form in the chat as well, so you'll have that handy for you for the committees as well. So yeah.
So for the Advocacy Committee, I've been on that committee for a few years now, and I'll tell you, it was something that was very outside my experience and comfort zone doing that, but I thought it was very important, which is one reason or the main reason that I applied to be on it. It's been a great experience. What's really helpful is we have, I don't know the official title, I'll call him a liaison, who's worked in advocacy for a long time. So he helps facilitate a lot of the efforts and the conversation. So you're not doing this by yourself. I've never shook a hand with a legislator and told them about a bill that I was supporting ever in my life. And so having a partner, someone who's done it for decades, to kind of hold your hand and go through it was very helpful. We had virtual visits like this with some legislative representatives. So that part was very easy and also very interesting to see kind of what happens behind the scenes on the legal side of things, and especially in obesity medicine, where there's all sorts of exciting things going on as far as new medications and treatments and surgery guidelines changing. So to have advocacy pushing for coverage to help our patients, I think it's a great area. The other thing is that one thing that an area that I see the advocacy committee changing a little bit recently is the people on the committee aren't just advocating, they're also working bigger picture, facilitating others to be advocates. Right. And so we have this STAR program where, we're not going to have 50 people from all the 50 states on the committee, but how do you reach out to have representatives in those different states? So that's an option too, to be involved, even if you are not on the advocacy committee. You can be one of these STAR people and still benefit from what's going on there. And then the medical surgical committee. So you saw that's our main goal, what Teresa read there. And the ways we do that, pretty broad. So we work with the outreach committee and wrote a few blog articles specifically on medical surgical type practices. We put together a slide deck for the OMA on best practices from our perspective at medical surgical centers. One of our major projects this year was documenting sort of a how-to step-by-step process for starting a combined medical surgical program. And we're moving towards is working on collaboration and bridging the gap between the medical and surgical side. So interacting more with the Obesity Society and the ASMBS. So those are kind of the major things we've been working on.
I'll go ahead and keep on moving because I know, again, in the interest of time, it's getting late evening for some of you, and then at the end we can answer any questions or whatnot, and I'll certainly ask Sam to make some remarks as well. But so this is the Bariatric Medical Surgical Committee, as Dr. Weber was indicating. So our next committee is the CIT, and CIT stands for Clinicians in Training. And this group is focused on really introducing obesity-based education for trainees. Primarily, it's focused on medical schools and residency programs, but there has been some discussion about developing curriculum for other subspecialties such as dietitians, nurses, et cetera. But I would tell you the bulk of the work of this committee is physicians, faculty folks. This is chaired by Dr. Nick Pennings, and Dr. Pennings oversees all of our clinical education at the OMA. Many of you have probably either met Dr. Pennings or been privileged to his expertise on some of our fundamentals courses that we do. So the folks that sit on this committee largely are in academic settings, no surprise, that are responsible for training the next generation of physicians. So that's this group. This committee was developed. This is just the first year that it's wrapping up in 2022, and then that group will continue to develop curricula into 2023 as well. We have the CME Overview Committee, and this group oversees all of our CME activities, particularly as it relates to our in-person and virtual offerings. And so many of you have been involved likely in submitting a proposal to speak at one of our meetings. And so this group is involved with reviewing all of those proposals, kind of blind reviews, unblinded reviews, scoring those, ensuring that our programming all kind of aligns and fits together and those sorts of things. So big lift, lots and lots of work on an average conference cycle. So for example, with our New York meeting coming up in the spring, I think we had over 60 proposals submitted. So this group does a huge amount of work in terms of reviewing those elements and reaching out in the community for various faculty ideas of speakers and those sorts of things. So a lot of really great work by this group. The next one is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And this one just had a name change to this. So it's very exciting for me through Sam's vision to rename this committee. And as you see here, this group is really looking at inclusivity within the OMA, not only in our society, but as it relates to the patients that you're serving in your practices every day. And so Sam is the board liaison to this committee, and we'll be deploying a diversity, equity, and inclusion survey out to our members here as the holidays approach. And so we would love all of you to fill that out, because what we're going to learn from all of you as members of OMA around these efforts will drive the tactics for the committee in 2023. So with that, I'm going to again stop sharing and ask Sam to make any comments about that committee or any other committee, because Sam, you know most of these committees, obviously. So,
well, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, this is the conclusion of our second year. And when we introduced it in 2021, we just had this overwhelming number of people that applied, like 35 people. And we had to decide, how many people is a workable committee. And it was an amazing group. And we were the largest committee. I don't know if we are for 2022, but I wouldn't be surprised. So there's a lot of interest in it. And what was done in the first year was, and there's been so much participation from the members in writing dietary guides for all kinds of different ethnic groups. And those are posted on the OMA blog. The bulk of our work this year was in creating this survey. And the survey is really designed to improve the experience that members have in OMA. So we want to understand all the different types of diversity that are in our organization and how people feel, do they feel included? And that can go from professional designation, ethnicity, sexual orientation, what else is there in there? Your race, as well as maybe your specialty. So are people that are nephrologists feeling welcome in OMA? So there's all these things we want to learn because we want to improve the experience. And there's been lots of other articles besides the dietary guides. There was one gal did one on breastfeeding for women with obesity and how we can support our mothers with that. So it's a super exciting committee, and what we learned from the survey is going to be, the work of our committee next year, but we also want to disseminate it to all the other areas of OMA. And then back to the CME committee, I served on that one for just years and years, and it's just one of the best experiences because you really get to understand the heartbeat of OMA education, and we review all the proposals, but also the slide decks that come in for the conferences as well as the webinars. And you get to learn what the standards are. You learn about the standards for the CME accreditation that we need to meet. You learn about the importance of people first language and just inclusive language about clinicians. So, I learned so much by being on that committee. I was on it for several years, and I only stopped being on it when I got elected on the board because I just felt like I couldn't do that as well. But when my board tenure's over, I'm going right back to that committee because it does some really important work for OMA.
My next slide, I won't share it, but just Sam is the membership committee, very well too. So if you want to chime in about your work there, and Christian can chime in anything too with membership. So
I'm going to pass that to Christian because
all right, Christian,
he makes it easy for the rest of us on that committee.
This is your soapbox.
I mean, this is a lot of pressure, a board member passing it to me. No, membership committee is a good crew. We try to limit it to about 15 max, just because we feel it's a better good amount to work with, but do quite a bit. The membership committee generates content for recruitment campaigns. They monitor our LinkedIn group. We really try to do a lot of the promotion. We've come up with CIT outreach letters and a lot of good articles. We do a monthly recruitment campaign that we use the content generated by this group, and every month is a different topic. So it's really good work. The membership committee at the events, most of them tend to attend and really get everybody hyped up, especially new members, and try to get people engaged. Moving into next year, when we finally get new technology, they're going to be more important than ever because we're going to be implementing community forums in our software. So they're going to really get things going and make sure members get active, but great group. So look forward to having some new blood in there.
Okay, thank you. I'll go and share screen again. The next committee we have is the Outreach Committee, and Katie on our team, you can see my screen, can't you, I think? Yeah. Okay. Katie on our team that's on the call tonight assists with this committee, and what they do is a great amount of blog articles. They give us insights around ideas for different publications, those sorts of elements. And as we look toward, Christian mentioned, we're going to be onboarding a new association management system over the course of 2023. One of the other items on our wish list is to look at really updating our website. Our website, we acknowledge, needs a lot of work and a lot of TLC. And so we will use at some juncture, hopefully in 2023, but at some juncture, this outreach group to provide us kind of some use case scenarios and some kind of user feedback as it relates to the work of the outreach committee. So the final committee is our Pediatric Committee, and it's pretty self-explanatory. What this group does is care of pediatric patients. And I'm going to stop sharing because Dr. Dominique Williams chairs this committee, and she said, Teresa, I can't be on the call, but make sure you tell them everything that we do. I don't want to miss anybody on this committee. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to look at my notes real quick here and to make sure that that you know everything that they have been up to. So really wanting to increase the visibility and options that we offer for OMA content related to children. So that's obviously a big element of what they do. They did a dedicated PEDS track at our Anaheim meeting that just wrapped up, and this committee does a lot of lift and a lot of work as it relates to that. They provide us potential speaker recommendations in the expertise of pediatrics, and then looking at different publications. So I believe, have been involved with our OBC Pillars Journal and doing some various publications in the PEDS space. And then something else that this committee does, which I think is kind of neat, is we do our kind of business work, if you will, as far as staff and supporting that committee. But one of the things that they have enjoyed as a group is the ability to kind of, and this meeting is about 30 minutes long on a monthly basis, but what we do as staff is we hop off at that 30-minute mark, and that committee stays on, and they do a case presentation that they discuss as a group. We don't take meeting minutes. It's just an opportunity for them to collaborate as clinicians and talk about difficult situations with children or parents that they're dealing with as pediatric obesity experts. And so that's kind of a neat add, I think, to this group. They just have really enjoyed that ability to collaborate with each other once a month. Again, they assign a person to kind of bring an interesting clinical scenario to the group just for discussion. And that's, again, an interesting kind of byproduct of what that group does. So with that was our last committee. I just want to remind everyone of the deadline of November 18th that I mentioned previously. And if you have questions of us as staff or any of the chairs, or gee, I'd like to talk to somebody on the pediatric committee, I'm interested in that. I would just ask, and I'll have Katie type it in the chat, but we would ask that you email our membership team that Christian oversees at membership@obesitymedicine.org, and we'll keep an eye on that. Sometimes folks have questions that they don't want to ask on a Zoom call, but they want to, talk to another peer, that sort of thing. We're more than happy to facilitate that connection to another colleague as it relates to our committee work. So I did want to also welcome to the call Dr. Abby, also on our board. She just popped on the call, and she is our board liaison, both working with Sam in the diversity group as well as our medical bariatric surgery group. So anyway, lovely to see our friend Dr. Abby hop on the call as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop my remarks there, but this isn't for us as a staff. It's really for any of you who have interest in our committees. Katie's been wonderful to respond to some of your questions in the chat this evening, but by all means, if you have a question, if you'd like to unmute or ask any of our leaders or any of our staff, we're happy to help entertain any questions you may have.
Teresa, do you want to chime in on this? Like what ideal candidates are we looking for to serve?
Oh, ideal candidates. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. People who are going to contribute, I guess would be my first thing is, I think no different than other committee work, and I'm not saying OMA committee, just committee work. I think some folks have a desire to just, sign me up for that committee so I can maybe put that on my CV, or I can say that I'm involved with that. But it's like anything else. You're going to get as much out of it as you contribute to it, right? And so it's so important that folks are, roll up their sleeves and really contribute to this. And we understand all of our colleagues are, very busy practicing clinicians and that sort of thing. These calls, I don't know that there's one that isn't of an evening. So it's not like you're going to be bothered with a noon call on a Tuesday that you're trying to get out of your clinic and get to that. So I would say contributions and a passion for that area of work. I guess if you weren't very passionate about advocacy, maybe don't, get involved with that committee unless, like Dr. Weber was indicating, I've never shook the hand of a senator, but I thought, well, I need to figure out how to do that, right? Sort of thing. So Christian, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because some people get worried about the workload that, goes behind for people to get involved. Every committee, typically it's a once a month call, like Teresa mentioned, is generally in the evening. You volunteer to do a task, here and there, but you shouldn't be concerned with a heavy workload. We do kind of want you to miss no more than 2 meetings in a year. So there is some time commitment. But when we have 15 to 25 members in each committee, it's a little bit easier to divide the workload. So if you're brand new, I don't want you guys to be scared to apply or join, because you're not going to be completely overwhelmed. And it's a good way to get engaged. You're going to meet so many great members. Hopefully we could wrangle you all to go to our live meetings. And sometimes we schedule committee meetings at our live events, depending on how many are showing up then. So please feel free to not be scared and apply.
Yeah, we've got a question in the chat around board certification. Is it required? No, it's not. And our committees are multidisciplinary. So I wanted to highlight that as well. So if you, I'm a nurse by clinical training, I could apply to be on a committee. You don't have to be a physician. And in fact, I think that's really one of the main strengths of the Obesity Medicine Association is it's this house of care for our patients across all disciplines. So yes, we absolutely want multidisciplinary representation. So
one more comment there, since that question was brought up. It's not required, but just so you know, we do have a fellow program too, a fellow of OMA. And one of the optional requirements once you've been a member for 5 years is you participated in a committee for at least 2 years. There's also a one in there that you were a chair of a committee. There's multiple sets of requirements, but if you want to work your way up to chair, you'll end up fulfilling one of the steps to becoming a FOMA as well.
Yeah.
We
also go ahead, Dr. Abby. Sure. Yeah.
As I want to chime into what Christian said is, don't be afraid of the workload. If you're passionate about obesity medicine, you're going to love the committees. Teresa, this was before you came in, but actually there were 2 years back to back when I was on all the committees.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Christian, I don't know if you remember that.
And she's alive to tell the story, everybody. Just saying. Wow, that's amazing.
We like on 8 calls in the month, and then there were blog articles we were doing, and it was fun. I mean, if you're passionate about it, you make connections, and
right.
I'm still in touch. I mean, I was a mentee at that time, and I had a lot of mentors. I'm still in touch with them. They may or may not be active with OMA, but I'm still in touch with them. So it's a great way to make connections. It's a great way to, just enjoy what you're doing, and then you're contributing to the OMA too. So don't get scared, just jump in and, enjoy the ride. It's a lot of
And
fun.
we try at our in-person meetings to have a committee meeting. It doesn't always work if many of that committee membership isn't going to be in attendance and that sort of thing. But so like Dr. Abby was saying, it's really fun to be on Zoom calls with your committee every single month. And then, oh my goodness, I get to meet you in person at the fall meeting, or, those sorts of things. So that's pretty cool too. The other thing I was going to add is we do all of our committee work in an IT platform called Basecamp. And some of you may have used Basecamp in some of your other professional endeavors. And it's been a pretty useful utility for us in terms of posting documents and editing documents and sharing agendas and those sorts of things. Because what will happen is once our staff sets you up in Basecamp, you'll be alerted via email if there's a question about something or there's a comment about something. I know the Bariatric Medical Surgical Committee that Dr. Weber chairs is a very active group, and they'll say, has anybody seen this, or can anybody share this protocol? And the teams are so willing and so amenable to sharing ideas with each other that way too. So that's been a pretty useful utility for us as well. So.
And
One more,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Go.
Sam, just one more quick comment. Don't be afraid to apply for more than one committee also,
Sure.
because of
Sure.
the caps that we try to have and stuff. Sometimes we can't let everybody in, but we want you to have a shot at being part of one or the other. And unfortunately, you do have to apply separately for each committee. Thank you. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, like, some really big things have come out of committees that have changed OMA. I haven't been on all the committees, but for example, our Speakers Bureau came out of the Outreach Committee. We got together and created a proposal, put it forward to the board, and then that happened. And since I'm a nurse practitioner, the NPPA committee, when we had one, made a proposal that we could serve on the board, and we created a certificate of advanced education in obesity medicine for NPs and PAs. And those are really big things that have changed the direction or have enhanced, I guess, the OMA. So, and there's lots of other things like all these blog articles, all the advocacy efforts. There's, I'm sure there's lots of others that I am not aware of that were born from committees.
Yeah, I can't echo Dr. Abby's comments enough. The committee work, these become your tribe, right? These become your friends, really, and they're lifelong friends. It's just like anything else. So it's really I just think it's really the lifeblood of our organization, the work that these committees do, and it's all volunteer. And we're just so grateful to our leaders that are dialed in tonight to share their perspectives and their time and efforts and their expertise with OMA and with all of you. So does anyone else have any questions? I know Katie and Christian have been addressing questions in the chat, which I thank them very much for, and hopefully we've addressed those. And again, additional questions that you may have offline, just membership@obesitymedicine.org, and we'll get that routed to the right person or persons if we can help in any way. So any remaining questions anybody has as we wrap up, and we'll let you get back to dinner or whatever you were headed to this evening. So, okay. And Christian wants to go see if those Astros win tonight, right, bud? So
That's it. Go Astros.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your time. And we appreciate everybody showing up, especially our leadership team. We appreciate it very much, and have a good evening. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Have a good night.